Hello and welcome to the Let's Keep Moving series with the American Parkinson's Disease Association. My name is Nick Wendel, and I'm a board certified specialist in neurologic physical therapy. Today, we're going to be talking about how to navigate safely and steadily at home with Parkinson's disease. I wanted to start by introducing our team here at the Boston University Center for Neurorehabilitation, which is where I work. You can see all of my colleagues here, and I have to thank them for all their help in putting together this talk. We also have a bit more information on our website about our center, which is located in Boston, Massachusetts. If you want to learn more about us, you can happily do so at that website. I also wanted to say that we're part of the American Parkinson's Disease Association National Rehab Resource Center, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that at the end of our talk today. This is another good time to just highlight that I'm going to be talking about a lot of general information today that is helpful, but should not be taken as individualized medical advice. Because everyone is a little bit different, it's important to talk to your own medical providers if you have specific challenges. So meeting with your doctor or your physical therapist can be helpful if you have specific challenges to you. So today we're going to be focusing on a few different things. We're going to be talking about some different tips to improve stability and movement in the home. We're going to talk about strategies to help you move in bed and in and out of chairs, which are common challenges for many people with Parkinson's disease. And we are going to talk about tips for reducing falls and improving independence around the home. So, starting out with things to help with stability in the home. One of the most common recommendations around the house for people with Parkinson's disease, and one of the most challenging to implement, is to reduce the number of things in a person's home or living environment. Because as we live somewhere longer, we often acquire more things. Things can get cluttered, and it can be hard to navigate different areas of rooms or between rooms and houses. You can see in this picture, this woman has a very lovely living room. However, there's a lot of different things going on there. There's a lot of furniture, and it's all rather close together. If she wanted to say get to the blue couch on the right side of the table or the right side of the photograph, she would have to get really, really close to that blue couch and kind of inch between the coffee table. And that could contribute to something called freezing of gait, or it might contribute to a trip or a fall or slower movement around the room. Additionally, if she wanted to get behind that orange couch on the left-hand side of the picture, she would have to go in between that orange couch and the lamp and the desk behind it. And again, that can contribute to a little bit more challenging mobility, and in some cases with Parkinson's, freezing or falls. In general, increased amount of furniture or increased amount of uh, furniture or clutter around the house can lead to a little bit more challenges. And so, one of the common recommendations is to think critically about what you have in your home. And is there things that could be moved or spaces could be widened to make mobility a bit easier? In addition to reducing clutter, some other suggestions that might be helpful for improving mobility in the home include things like thinking critically about throw rugs that are on the ground. While throw rugs are very helpful for interior decoration, the change in surface and visual change in flooring can sometimes lead to freezing of gait and falling in people with Parkinson's disease. Also, if a throw rug isn't properly secured, it can become a tripping hazard. Similar to the last slide where we talked about clutter, furniture can often be in the way, and it sometimes is helpful to move furniture to more open spaces so that it can allow you more room to maneuver, especially around chairs or couches. You can see this woman in the picture is moving the coffee table farther away from the sofa and chair to allow easier access to all sitting areas in the room. Finally, it's really important to consider the height of chairs and couches in your environment. While a chair or couch might have been fine for most of the day, sometimes later in the day when you're tired and more likely to be sitting on that chair, it can be a bit harder to get up from that surface. In these situations, it's often helpful to think about, is there another chair in the room that you could sit in that might be a little bit easier? Or could you make the chair a little bit taller artificially by adding a pillow or a towel or something underneath it to build yourself up? These are all suggestions that can be helpful kind of moving around your house. The bathroom can be another area of challenge for many people with Parkinson's disease. It even starts with getting into the bathroom. Often, the doorway width can play a role, and it can be sometimes challenging for people to use a device that they might use around the house, like a walker or a cane, inside the bathroom. And because they don't use that device in the bathroom, it's important to think critically about how you're going to keep your balance and move safely in that vulnerable space. The type of shower can also be very important because you don't want the time where you're getting into a shower be a time where you have to think about balance. Some people may find it difficult to step into a tub, and they might find a step in shower or a tub with a chair to be more helpful to allow them to get in a little bit more safely. Because again, the shower is an area where we really don't want to be thinking about balance, adding a chair or a grab bar in this environment can be a really worthwhile investment. As you can see in this picture, in the area on the left-hand side, there is a built-in shower chair and a grab bar next to that chair, as well as alongside underneath the nozzle where people would change the temperature. These bars are really thoughtfully placed and can be helpful to allow you to move more successfully in the shower environment and not be as worried about your balance. In addition to the shower, grab bars can be really helpful near the sink or the toilet, as is shown in this picture, because sinks and toilets aren't something that you should be putting a lot of weight through. And so, if you need to have something for your balance that you want to put some weight through, a grab bar can be a really successful strategy in those environments. Grab bars are only successful, however, if they're installed correctly. And so it's really important to consult a licensed contractor that has experience installing grab bars to make sure they're in studs and they're not going to be falling off the wall. Many people think about using suction cup grab bars, which can be helpful to be because they're easy to place on a wall. But if they're not sturdy enough, what can happen is when you put pressure on the grab bar, it can lead you to lose your balance if it's not sturdily placed. So, in summary, when you're thinking about grab bars, they can often be helpful, but you need to be very thoughtful in how they're installed and where they're installed. And often working with a provider like a physical or occupational therapist can help to make some good suggestions. So I've just talked about lots of different tips and suggestions for how to navigate safely in your home, specifically in the living room or rooms with lots of furniture, as well as in the bathroom. But before I moved on to some other topics, I wanted to ask if anyone in the chat had any other movement challenges in the home or suggestions on what has worked for them, maybe things I didn't even talk about. If you feel comfortable, please write some of these things in the chat and we'll discuss them at the end when my colleague Teresa Baker comes on. So, another activity that I practice often with many of my patients is getting out of a chair. And so today we're going to talk about many strategies that we have worked with in physical therapy to make this easier. Slides with a red title will show my colleague Tim demonstrating many common problems that I've seen working with patients with Parkinson's disease. And slides with a green title will show my colleague Teresa demonstrating how to use a strategy to make things easier. So in this picture, we often see that people with Parkinson's disease have difficulty getting out of chairs because they start way too far back. So you can see in this left picture, Tim is at the very back of his chair. He's sitting with his back up against the backrest. It's very comfortable. But when in the middle picture, he starts to lean forward, you can see he can't get his weight forward enough. And in the far right picture, he ends up back sitting in the chair. And he's not successful at his goal, which is to get up from the chair. This can be even more difficult in people with Parkinson's disease because of the inherent stiffness and slowness that are part of the disease. On this next slide, on the other hand, we see a green strategy, and you see my colleague Teresa demonstrating a more successful technique. So again, she starts sitting in the back in the leftmost picture. But in the middle picture, you can see she is scooted forward right to the edge of the chair and is using her hands to push up. Sitting on the edge of the chair makes it easier to get up because your weight is closer to your feet, and therefore you don't have to shift your weight as far forward in order to get up. Additionally, she's using her arms on the armrest to help push her body weight forward, which helps to counteract some of the challenges people with PD experience related to the stiffness and slowness that I was talking about on the left side. So, this strategy of scooting to the edge of the chair and then using your arms to push up can help to overcome some of the challenges that many people with Parkinson's have. Another example we have here, Tim has scooted forward to the edge of the chair. However, he still isn't successful getting up. So you can see he's sitting at the edge, but in the middle picture, he's trying to lean forward, but he's not able to shift his weight forward enough. So I put a little red line, as you can see, right from his nose all the way down to his toes. And this is a cue that we use a lot in physical therapy. The cue goes, try to put your nose over your toes. And that helps the person with Parkinson's disease to shift their weight forward. In this example, we can clearly see that Tim's nose is way behind his nose, and therefore he is not able to shift his weight forward and ends up back in the chair. On the next slide, we see a green slide showing a better strategy. In this case, Teresa leans forward and will show a red line where her nose is far in front of her toes. And so you can see this red line going from Teresa's nose, and it's a good 2, 3 inches in front of her nose, allowing her to translate her weight forward and stand up more successfully. So, this strategy of leaning forward and bringing your nose over your toes can be really helpful for many people with Parkinson's disease to stand up more effectively. In review, we've discussed a number of different strategies to help getting up from chairs. We talked about making sure to scoot forward to the edge of the chair, using your hands to help you if possible, again, working on pushing yourself forward. We talked about leaning forward, bringing your nose over your toes, and also considering the height of the chair and sometimes pulling in a cushion if needed, or picking a taller seat. These are just some of the things that I've seen working with many patients with Parkinson's disease, but I'm talking to you, the expert. You've lived this experience. And so I wanted to pause and ask anyone in the audience if you've used any of these strategies that we talked about today, or if you have a new strategy, a different strategy, one that I didn't talk about that you'd like to share with the group. This could be really helpful for us to all learn together. And I'd encourage you, if you're comfortable, to take some time and write in the chat. I'll pause here for a second, and then we'll start talking about the next thing. Thanks for everyone for being so interactive with the chat. So, in addition to getting out of chairs, another thing that can be challenging for some people with Parkinson's disease is getting into and out of the bed. And this is something that sometimes requires help from individuals with Parkinson's disease. They might need help from a care partner or a spouse. And it's not something you often want help with. And so working with a physical therapist can often be a helpful thing to improve your independence in this task. Some of the most common challenges that people with Parkinson's disease have with getting into and out of bed include, in this first picture, difficulty getting your legs up into the bed. And so you again can see my colleague Tim, and he's really struggling to lift those legs up into the bed. Another challenge that many people with Parkinson's have in the second picture is getting positioned straight in the bed. And so you can see here in this picture, Tim is a little bit cockeyed. His legs are farther to the right of the bed than his body. And that can make you feel like you're about to fall out, which is never a comfortable feeling for anyone as they're trying to get a good night's sleep. So getting positioned comfortably in the center of the bed can be a challenge for many people with Parkinson's disease. And then finally, in the last picture, we have a demonstration of Tim, struggling to get up out of bed. He's trying to sit up, but he's not able to overcome some of the stiffness or some of those difficulties with abdominal strength. And this can be a common challenge for people with Parkinson's disease and one that can be overcome with different strategies. So, these are just some of the challenges that I've seen in many patients with Parkinson's disease. And we're to go through some example strategies for each of these problems. However, moving in bed is highly specific to the individual. It's specific to the type of bed that you have. It's specific to your height and weight. Do you sleep alone? Do you sleep with a bed partner? How many sheets do you use? And what type of area of the country do you live in? And so, if these suggestions don't work for you, it's often helpful to find a local physical therapist so they can provide personalized recommendations for you and how to get back out of bed in your specific situation. So, that being said, here are some recommendations that we've used in a number of our patients. So, in this series of three pictures, Teresa is demonstrating a strategy that works for many people with Parkinson's disease to help get into the bed. And so she starts in the leftmost picture by sitting at the edge of the bed in the right distance so that when she lies down, her head will hit the picture or will hit the pillow. This distance is surprisingly hard to judge, and so it might take a little bit practice. And some people even put a little marker so they know exactly where to sit. Next, in one motion, she lies down on her side with her head on the pillow as her legs are pulled up onto the side of the bed. And this is a little bit different than maybe people have gotten into bed in the past, but can be really successful because the weight of your upper body helps to bring some momentum and lift the weight of your legs up into the bed and requires less effort and strength through the legs. So, doing this all in one motion takes advantage of gravity and momentum to allow you to get your legs into the bed a little bit more easily. And then finally, after she's in that sideline position, in the third picture on the right, Teresa is able to roll on her back into the center of the bed. If she starts in a straight line on the side of the bed, when she rolls onto her back, she will stay in a straight line in the center of the bed to help overcome that common challenge that we saw on the last side of being a bit crooked or cockeyed in the bed. An additional strategy that some patients will use is by getting in on their hands and knees and then rolling onto their side rather than sitting on the edge of the bed first. And this can be a beneficial strategy because it can be easier to get closer to the center of the bed because people are able to crawl on their hands and knees. However, it's really important, as Teresa demonstrates in the middle and rightmost picture, to be very careful when going onto your side, onto your shoulder. So in this example, Teresa on the leftmost picture is on her hands and knees and she crawls forward until she's in the middle of the bed. And then she rolls down onto her right side, allowing her to go controlled in a controlled manner and not damage or hurt her shoulder or ribs. Once she's on her side, she can sleep on her side if she's a side sleeper, or she can roll onto her back. Again, farther into the bed, right in the center, to help overcome some of those challenges. On the next slide, we're going to highlight some strategies for getting out of bed, which can also be a little bit troublesome for some people with Parkinson's disease. So, one of the most successful strategies for getting out of bed consists of first rolling onto your side. So you can see in the leftmost picture, Teresa is raising up her left arm and what we say is punching the side of the mattress. So she's using her arm and her momentum in her upper body to help rotate and get onto her side. That cue of punching the mattress can be really helpful because it really brings a strong picture in mind and it can allow for that extra momentum. Some people also may find that a bed rail can be helpful in this situation. So instead of punching the mattress, in this case, Teresa might reach for a bed rail so that she can use her upper body to help her roll onto her side. Once she's on her side, in the middle picture, you can see she has her elbow and her arm positioned to help push her up. She's then able to use her arms to help push up as she swings her legs off the edge of the bed so that she can use again her momentum to get into a nice upright position. This allows her to use her upper body and again the weight of her legs to sit up and doesn't have to overcome the weight of her upper body. So, using her arms to help roll onto her side and get up is a great strategy to help get out of bed for people with Parkinson's disease. In summary, we wanted to review a few of these strategies that we suggested. So, for getting into bed, it's really important, again, to bring your head to the pillow and lay onto your side so that you can get into bed and get your legs into bed more easily. Some people may try to go in on their hands and knees, but if you do that, it's very important to be careful as you roll onto your side. Using your arms when rolling and thinking about punching the mattress or reaching for a bed rail can be really helpful when rolling out of bed. And it's also important to think about getting out of bed from your side is much easier than getting out of bed from your back. So these are just some of the strategies that, again, I've worked on with a number of my patients with Parkinson's disease. But for a third time, I wanted to just pause briefly and ask if anyone in the audience has used any of these strategies or other strategies. And if you feel comfortable, please do share them with the group. Great. So, before I finished up, I wanted to just give a quick plug for our APDA exercise helpline that's housed here at Boston University. The number is on the page here, 888-606-1688. Or if you're more comfortable with emailing, you can email us at rehab@bu.edu. We're available 24/7 to ask questions about any of your exercise related questions, whether it's how to find a physical therapist or how to find an exercise class. And we'll get back to you with an answer in the next few days after you reach out. So I wanted to take this opportunity to call in my colleague, Teresa Baker, to go over some of the questions in the chat, and we can have a nice discussion about everything that you guys brought in. So thank you. Welcome, Teresa.
Hi, Nick. Thank you so much for what a great presentation. Thank you for the information, and the pictures are just so helpful to illustrate the points that you're talking about. That was wonderful. We want to thank everyone in the audience who's already been so participatory with their comments and with their questions. And I think that's where we'd like to start some of the discussion. I do want to just celebrate. We had someone write in, Jolie mentioned this is her very first APDA webinar. And she mentioned she's looking forward to learning a lot. And she raised the question, would she be able to have access to this information after the presentation? And I think the answer is yes, of course. These presentations are archived on our APDA YouTube channel. So we encourage everyone who has had a chance to, oh, yep, there's her comment, to be able to participate today, but also have all these webinars are archived for everyone's use. Nick, I'd just like to bring up a couple of comments from people in the chat on strategies that they themselves are using, and then maybe get to
Wonderful.
some questions. So I appreciate the comment so much. Sue writes in that wearing good shoes, ones that are supportive, comfortable, easy to get on and get off, are important for safe mobility at home. And I think that was an excellent point that she raised. And Sue, I like your point about flip-flops just don't work. And for some people, just having that supportive shoe footwear does make quite a difference for balance and for getting around the house. I thought that was a great comment.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Sue. That's wonderful.
Yep. And just another interesting point from Anne. Anne writes that this is relative to your point, Nick, about moving around in bed. So Anne wrote that her husband helped install almost trapeze style rings to help a little bit with kind of moving around in bed. And Anne gets at another excellent point about using satin sheets and kind of satin-like style pajamas to help kind of decrease friction. And I think that's something you and I have worked with people or heard comments from other people we work with about other ways to help move in bed.
Yeah, so thank you, Anne, for sharing that. And it seems like your husband is very impressive with the installation of the trapeze rings. I'm glad that works well for you. And so this is an example of where, things sometimes have to get really personalized to you and your situation, right? A trapeze ring might not work for everyone, but it might work for some. And that's where you can work with your provider to help figure that out. And that recommendation for the type of sheets is also really helpful. So that satin sometimes can reduce the friction and it can make it easier to roll or slide in the bed. The satin sheets aren't for everyone, but it's something that if you're having a little bit trouble or if you feel like you're getting stuck in the sheets, it can be helpful to try.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great point. And then, Nick, there's a question that came up, and I'd be curious to kind of get your thoughts. Wendy brought up a point. This is relative to kind of mobility in the bathroom. Thoughts about using a portable commode placed over the toilet with kind of the bucket removed.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
a great suggestion, and I'm so happy people are bringing these things up. So I showed a picture with two grab bars on either side, and that can be a helpful installation for some people. But in other cases, a portable commode like this, as long as it's sturdy, can be really helpful because it raises the height of the seat, something we talked about throughout the presentation today. The other nice thing about a portable commode is that it has often arm rests to use. And so you can use your arms to help you stand up more effectively. And so those can be really helpful. But again, just something to think about is to make sure that it's nice and sturdy before you try it out for the first time.
Yeah, yeah, very well said, Nick. And I've had a few people know that that strategy is right for them. And just in one example of a particular person I worked with, they were able to actually bring that with them in the car to someone else's home that they were going to spend the holidays with as another way to make a house that they don't live in accessible for them. But again, it has to be personalized and to work well for the person we're talking about. Yeah. This is another question that came from the chat. This was a question from Juan relative to, I think, your presentation with standing up. His point was,
Mhm.
my knees hurt when I get up, and just kind of curious about any thoughts with that.
Yeah, and so that's a really great point and a question, Juan, that many people kind of deal with. And just because you're an individual with Parkinson's disease doesn't mean that you can't have other health conditions, right? And so anyone can have knee pain. It's a very common condition for many individuals, regardless of your age or health condition. And there's many reasons why someone's knees may hurt. Specifically, getting out of a chair can put some pressure on your knees. But I think we feel pretty confident that most people should be able to learn a way or to have an intervention to help them to better get out of a chair without pain. And so, Juan, I would suggest that you find a provider, whether it's first through a medical doctor or eventually seeing a physical therapist, to kind of understand a little bit more about why your knees are hurting. Some suggestions that might help for you, depending on your situation, would be raising the height of the chair or using your arms, like we talked about. But it would be important to get to the bottom of the reason why your knees are bothering you. And the same would be said for anyone who's experiencing knee pain or back pain. The reasons are very personalized to you. And so it's a good idea to start with a medical doctor or a physical therapist to kind of understand the reasons why and the causes for that pain.
Yeah, yeah, well said. And I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions.
Great.
This is a question that came from Morris. And I think the question is related to suggestions about pulling up a chair to a table when sitting down to eat. And I know that's something that we both kind of work with people a lot on.
Yeah, so Morris,
Right.
this is something that I work with my patients a lot on. It's a big challenge. A lot of it really depends on the type of chair, the type of table, the type of flooring that you're doing, and this comes up a lot, at home, but also if people are going out to eat. And one of the reasons that it's really challenging is because in order to scoot forward on a chair without wheels, in order to pull a chair up under a table without wheels, you need to unweight your hips from that chair and then pull it forward, which is a very complicated and multi-step um, uh, condition. So, what I do often work on with my patients with Parkinson's disease is the first is scooting forward in the chair, scooting forward and backward. It's a kind of an important building block movement. And after people are able to scoot forward and backward effectively, the next step is seeing, can you lift up and have some space between your hips and the chair? And then if you can do that, you need to be able to scoot, lift up, put some space between your hips and chair, and bring it forward. Because there's many reasons why someone might have trouble scooting in a chair, and they might be different strategies that can be more or less effective. Again, working with a physical therapist on this isn't the thing that you often think of going to physical therapy for, but can be so helpful because being able to scoot your own chair to the table is a very personal thing and something that's really important to a lot of people. And so I would suggest, you could try out some of those things, but it might be a good idea to make an appointment with a local physical therapist. And if you have trouble finding one that has experience with Parkinson's disease, you can always reach out to our helpline. And the number I think will pop in here below, so that you can give a call and we can help you to find a local physical therapist to help you with that. So thank you for that comment. I know it's a lot of challenge for a lot of people. I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah. Thank you, Nick. And just to an earlier point, I think we had a follow-up question in the chat relative to footwear. I think the point we're getting at is that footwear that's supportive, that's comfortable, that's also well fit is important versus sometimes the style of footwear that you're sliding into or a flip-flop style where your foot is working to stay in the shoe adds just an additional challenge that just may be too much. So I think our point about the footwear is something that's supportive and something that's comfortable is one of our top recommendations. Um, and Nick, I think we just have kind of just maybe one last question to get to. This came to us a little earlier. A question about I'm noticing that I'm freezing more trying to move around my bathroom. Any suggestions to help with that?
Yeah. So the bathroom, we specifically talked about the bathroom today because it can be a challenge. It's often a little bit more narrow, and it can lead to more frequent freezing situations. And so some things that you can do is you can try to maximize the space available in your bathroom. And that can be helpful in some situations. But I would also suggest and refer you to our last month's webinar, which provided a lot of tips and tricks for freezing of gait. And those can be applied in the bathroom setting. The reasons the bathroom is difficult is because it's a narrow space. But if you log on and you watch my colleague Tim's webinar on tips and tricks for freezing of gait and Parkinson's, that might illuminate a little bit more some ideas and strategies to help you out. So I hope that helps and answers your question.
Nick, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for such a great presentation today. Can tell by the level of engagement that everyone was learning a lot and had a lot to contribute. So, Nick, thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you, Teresa. And I wanted to just thank everyone for being so interactive. There's some wonderful questions. I know I learned some things, and I will kind of keep some of those things in mind. And I hope you all learned some things as well. I wanted to just remind everyone again about the APDA exercise helpline, which is 888 606 1688, or you can email us at rehab@bu.edu for any exercise related questions. And I just ask if you found this interesting to please subscribe to the APDA Let's Keep Moving series. And please be sure to tune into our next broadcast coming up in October. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Hi, I'm Leslie Chambers, President and CEO of the American Parkinson Disease Association. Thank you so much for joining us today on our program. Every day, APDA is committed to providing helpful programs just like this one, as well as a wide variety of support groups, exercise classes, and educational programs to support the Parkinson's disease community. Whether online or in person, APDA is here for you every step of the way. You can find all of our upcoming virtual events on our website at apdaparkinson.org/events. We keep you posted on our social media channels as well, so make sure you follow us there. You can also connect to local resources and events through our nationwide network of chapters and information and referral centers. Remember, we're just a click or a phone call away. If you've enjoyed today's broadcast, I hope you will consider making a donation to help keep programs like this possible. Every gift, large or small, helps APDA support people living with PD through thoughtful programming, reliable resources, groundbreaking research, and more. Please visit apdaparkinson.org/donate today to support our critical work for those with Parkinson's. We are so grateful for your generosity. Thank you.